to a Hope 1032 podcast.
Hello, I'm Collett Smart, and I'm a psychologist, a teacher, and your host on Raising Teens. I'm also a parent, and I'm in the middle of raising my own teens and young adult children. I know that raising teens can be fun and busy, but also terrifying and even lonely. I've experienced all of these emotions, sometimes in the same day. On this podcast, I'm joined by well-known experts, and we chat about some of the most common questions I get asked about raising teenagers in my own work, and even some questions I have myself. I have such hope for this generation of young people, so each episode is full of support and practical advice. I love seeing all your questions come in, so each season I focus on some that teachers, parents, and carers have raised. We're all caring for the teens we love so much, so please keep sending in your ideas and questions through my Instagram and Facebook page or via the Hope 1032 podcast webpage, so we can support this generation of teens together. So I believe that we all have this inner drive to know that we matter, to know that our life has some kind of meaning. Purpose drives us forward in life. It gives us a sense of direction, motivation. And without purpose, the things we do in life can feel aimless and vague. In Season 4, Episode 10, I spoke to Steve Biddulph about his 4-story mansion. Each story is essential to being fully human, he said. They are body, emotion, intellect, and the top story is spiritual. Yet, I think the spiritual can often be ignored or pushed aside to maybe only a few hours a week. Steve described that top story as a rooftop garden where we could see the stars and we're connected to the world around us. As humans, I think we want to be part of something bigger and outside of ourselves. And so for you, it could look like social justice, or it might be deep, meaningful relationships. Maybe it's about saving the environment, having a faith, or a relationship with God. It doesn't have to just be one, though, I think. They may be all related. Now, our teens are asking these questions themselves, and so it's such an important topic to talk about with them. On this episode, I'm joined by Glen Gerreyn as we wrestle with this topic. Over the past 20 years, Glen has shared his message of hope with over 1 million people around the world, engaging with students, parents, teachers, employees, sporting groups, and community leaders. Glen's been invited to speak at TEDx events and on national TV and radio. He's authored 5 books and created numerous courses. Each and every day, Glen witnesses how the one simple idea of hope is affecting people's lives. These transformative personal experiences led Glen to create Hope Trafficker, a movement that is a catalyst for young people to tackle life head-on, no matter what their obstacle or dream. Glen lives in Brisbane, Australia, with his wife and 4 children. Hello, Glen. Welcome to Raising Teens.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Glen, I am so excited to have you on this episode. You come with the greatest recommendation I think I've ever had for a guest on this podcast. And I think you know why. It's because of your recommendation being from my 15-year-old son. So I told you that I've had plans for quite a while to ask you to be a guest on the podcast. I actually had another topic in mind, but the topic I had in mind will have to be for a later episode if you will come back. That book is actually sitting just above me on my favorites bookshelf. You know this because I messaged you straight away, so bear with me while I gush a bit here and give some context to everyone else why this is so important to me. So a week before recording this podcast, my son came home from school and he literally could not get through the front door. So he catches the bus home, and as he came in, he just stood there with his bag on his back and he started to tell me about Glen being at his school. Honestly, he barely took a breath. I made him some hot chocolate, as I do many days when he comes home. often he actually just needs time to chill before we even chat. But that day, he was so inspired. And Glenn, he took notes in the back of his school diary. He got us to read them as his parents. And I can tell you he wasn't the only one, because he was talking about how his friends had taken notes and they were talking about what you'd said afterwards. And for listeners out there, they're 15. That is a massive issue. So his words to me were, Mum, you have to get Glenn on your podcast. More than once, Mum. And then he said, I will even listen to your podcast.
Wow.
So,
that's high praise.
So I haven't told you this bit. A day or two after your seminar, he hit a bit of a slump with his basketball. And he said to me, Mum, I think I need to sit in one of Glenn's talks again. And then he said, I realized Glenn writes some books, and I had actually contacted you and I'd ordered some books. And so those graciously came in the post yesterday, because I only ordered one and you sent him the second one. So we're really excited, and I'm going to be fighting him for reading time on those books. So let's jump into the podcast, and let me just start by asking you, how did you get into this work? My son tells me you've got quite a story, so tell us.
Yeah, well, my parents are from Sri Lanka. So it was they migrated. I was 3 months old when we first moved to Australia. Back in the day when I was in high school, I was a state champion sprinter, qualified for the World Juniors, and pretty much had my sights set up on the up-and-coming Commonwealth Games and Olympic teams. But towards the end of high school, towards the end of my year 12, I got hit with an incurable disease called ulcerative colitis, which is very similar to Crohn's disease. So the doctors put me on a disability pension. It was quite chronic, and told me I'd never be able to work again, let alone run. So I lived like that, shut up at home for 5 years. And then at 22, I read Nelson Mandela's book, A Long Walk to Freedom. I got so inspired by his story that I took the $2 that I had that was left over from the disability pension that week, raised money through government grants and business sponsorship, and built a youth centre in Queensland. One Young Australian of the Year in 1998 for Queensland Community Service. And then schools, companies, football teams started asking me to come in and share my story. So I'm at a point in my life right now where I get to this. I feel really blessed. I get to speak in over 300 high schools around the world, work with corporations, sporting teams, to help, I guess, inspire them, help them focus, and help them engage in life.
Incredible. So the stereotype really is that teens don't want to listen to what old people have to say. I think what strikes me so much about you is you are able to keep literally thousands of young people engaged, halls full of young people, including my own child. They're enraptured by you, and that's really no small feat. So I think you seem to approach teens in a way that makes them feel perhaps understood or seen. They feel that you treat them with dignity. So what is your secret, Glenn? How do you recommend adults engage with teens?
Gosh, well, honestly, I think it's almost like a misconception that teens actually don't want to hear from older people.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I started speaking in high schools when I was 22. And I turned 50 this year. And I think I'm actually getting better at this. And it was weird because when I first started at 22, I was a single guy. I thought, I'll probably do this till I'm 30 and then I'll go on to something else.
Wow.
But when I turned 30, I had my first child. And I thought, wow, you know what? I've got so much more now to offer as a father to these kids. And then I had teenagers, and then I thought, wow, now as a dad, and I think the best compliment anyone's ever paid me is they said that, Glenn, what your secret sauce is that you really love these kids, but you're really tough on them. It's like you're like this father figure to a lot of them. And because I play it really real. I'm very candid, very frank with them. I'm not here to hype them up.
Yeah.
I'm here to present them with, the data, the research, but also help them understand that I actually really care for them. I think it was John Maxwell who said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think teens, they want to know that someone actually cares and doesn't talk down at them. I love how you said there, I present the data and the research to them. That's amazing, because we sometimes feel as though teens might not get that, and they want to feel like they're valued and they're intelligent enough to get the stuff. And you obviously do that really well.
Yeah. No, I try and speak like almost a little bit above their level.
Beautiful.
And I find they respond to that, because it's like, hey, you're not babying us here. You're treating us like adults.
Yeah. Let's talk about purpose. So in your book that is sitting right here next to me on my desk, it's called Get Your Hopes Up. And you write, I firmly believe that nothing satisfies the human spirit more than discerning its purpose. So what to you, Glen, is purpose?
Well, purpose to me is like a superpower. It's what gives life meaning. And it's like, for instance, whenever you're engaged in something that has your full attention, time passes strangely. Like 15 minutes feels like 3 hours, and when we are locked into our purpose, and talking about purpose as a superpower, I think really young people identify with that. I mean, when you think about the greatest movies, they've all about superheroes, and young people were, well, I've got some unique inclination, tendency, or proclivity that is unique to me, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's empathy, whether it's justice. They all possess this primal genius. And I think purpose to me is not something that's static. It's actually dynamic, and it evolves with every age and stage of your life. And if I was to go even a little bit further, I also think that what I think stupid advice is, and this is me being real, or unhelpful advice to young people, is telling them to chase their dreams. I don't encourage young people to chase their dreams. I encourage them to chase their strengths. Because when they chase their strengths, that's when they really find that bliss, that flow, that joy.
Some of the questions in our lives can be simple, like, what should I make for dinner tonight? But other questions, like those on purpose, can be really complex. The idea of finding a purpose or asking, why am I here, is not a new question. In all my reading on this topic, there is no single definition of purpose that I've found. It's something humans have been debating for centuries. In his book, The Purpose-Driven Life, Rick Warren recounts a tale about philosophy professor Dr. Hugh Moorhead, who asked 250 of the world's best-known scientists, philosophers, and thinkers the question, what is the meaning of life? Some offered their best guess or even admitted to making it up. Many wrote back to him saying, please tell us when you've discovered the purpose of life. Warren says we won't find purpose by looking within ourselves. It's so much more than about focusing on our own personal fulfillment or happiness, more than any career or award. Purpose is different to goals, however. Goals are about doing. Purpose is about being. It's a journey, not an endpoint. Do you feel like then purpose can change slightly over your lifetime?
Oh, absolutely. Like for me, like giving hope and inspiring people has been in my DNA literally from the day I was born. When I was doing track athletics at high school, people used to say, oh, we were inspired by the way that you run.
Okay.
Then when I was working, my first job, I just have these conversations with people and then all of a sudden say, oh, wow, that's really inspiring. And now I do it as a speaker, but I could do it as a cleaner. I could do it as anything, but it's who I am as a person.
So you're saying the central core for you in terms of your purpose was hope, but it might look different across your lifetime.
Across my lifetime,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. Some skeptics then would say, maybe the same skeptics who think you can't talk to teenagers as an adult, Some would say, well, my teen can't even plan for a test next week or think of what to pack for lunch tomorrow. Never mind think about next year or 10 years' time. Because clearly, whenever you speak, they are talking about their own purpose after you've spoken about your purpose. So you inspire them to think about purpose in a different way. So talk to me about how we get teens to think about the future in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that first part that I mentioned prior is, number one, it's a superpower. But number two, your purpose starts out small. I think too many young people, they recognize they have something, but to them it seems insignificant and worthless.
Yeah.
But once I shine a light on saying that every gift starts out small, but what we have to do is we have to work on it. We have to be patient enough, go through the seasons. We have to pull out the weeds. Then they suddenly realize, oh, wow, so me comparing my gift to somebody else's often makes them want to think that their life doesn't have any sort of purpose. And the second thing I say to them is that if they have hope in their future, they'll have power in their present. And the reason why so many young people today are disempowered and disengaged is because they have no hope in their future. And and the thing is, we also have to let young people know that it's about finding a life theme. They don't have to have it all worked out at 15 or 16 or 17. For instance, is it easier to steer a car when the car is moving or when it's stationary? The answer is obviously when it's moving, right? So I encourage young people to say, listen, in the next 10 seconds, like your life dependent on it, make a decision. And they go, okay, I'll pick an interest, architecture. That gets them moving. Now, it's far easier to turn towards interior design or robotics or engineering if they're moving. Yeah. But if they're stuck, they're not going to get anywhere. And when you take off the pressure of, hey, you have to have it all worked out, they go, oh, they finally settle and they go, okay, so I can change my mind 15 times between grade 9 and grade 11. Absolutely. Let's just get moving somewhere. And the other power in that is if they discipline themselves in any area, whether it's playing the violin, whether it's karate, whether it's learning to write a novel, that discipline builds wisdom. And with wisdom comes the ability to make a better decision about what they should do next.
I think I'm going to use your car analogy because I actually, every single term when I get a new class of uni undergrad students, very often entry level, a lot of them look really bewildered, wide-eyed, and they feel lost. And I often say to them, you know, put your hand up if you know where you're actually going, what you actually want to be. Yeah. And barely any of them do. Yeah. And I say to them, that's actually okay. You're on the path. Just keep moving along the path. But I think now I love your car analogy. I'm going to be using that from now on and quoting you.
Absolutely. And it gives them the freedom. And the research says that this generation of young people will have at least 35 different jobs, 7 different careers. And the careers that they'll be involved with don't even exist yet.
Yes.
So their goal is not to have it all worked out. The goal is just to pick a destination and start heading for it.
Beautiful. So on page 66 of your book, you write about who am I, why am I here, where am I going?
Well, I think they're powerful questions because who am I is about self-identity and awareness. Why am I here is about purpose and meaning, and where am I going is about destiny and direction. And when you frame it like that, young people, they get it. For instance, I actually believe that self-awareness leads to self-management.
Okay.
And the reason why a lot of young people today can't manage their life is because they're not self-aware.
All right.
But the more self-aware they become, the easier it is for them to manage their life.
Why? Why is that?
Because once you know who you are, you know exactly the direction you should go. Okay. But the key is how do you get a young person to become self-aware? By dealing with difficulties.
Yeah.
by overcoming challenges. But what we as parents sometimes, it's called, and by the way, I love all parents. I think every parent is doing the best job they know how.
Exactly right.
Right? And I tell young people that, your parents are doing the best job they know how. But some parents, they call them snowplow parents.
Yeah.
Well, what they want to do is want to take away every ounce of difficulty and challenge away from their child. And they do it with good intentions. Yeah. They actually think that's actually helping. They're the parent that kind of rings the school every time their child doesn't get the leadership position they thought they were going to get, or the mark they thought they were going to get, or the grade they thought they were, or the team they thought they were going to make. But if we keep rushing in to help them at every point, how are they going to learn what they're made of?
Yeah.
I use this illustration in schools where I talk about, when I was in year 12, I used to work out at the gym with one of my mates, and he used to try and spot me. And, we had no idea what we were doing. And every time I'd struggle with the weight, he would lift the bar off me and put it back on the rack. But that didn't help me. What a good spot will do is he'll come in with just 2 fingers, and he'll wait for you to struggle with the weight a little bit. He won't come in straight away. And once you get to the point where you're just about to fail, that's when he comes in with the tiniest bit of support, but he still makes you do most of it yourself. A good parent, there is a safety. They don't want their child to get hurt. There is that, but they let them carry some of this weight. And just when they're about to fail, that's when they come in with the tiniest bit of support to help them.
I can see why you are so popular with young people and other communities, because your illustrations just hit home. That is such a brilliant illustration for how to help young people struggle appropriately without being dangerous. That's magnificent, Glen.
Yeah. No, thank you.
You also talk about passion. So how is passion then different to purpose, or are they intertwined?
Yeah, well, they're intertwined. I think your passions lead you to your purpose.
All right.
To the things that you actually love. Because when you're passionate about something, it gives you energy.
Yes.
And that's what you need to actually take that tiny little gift, that insignificant seed of potential that you have, and actually work on it for it to become something big.
All right.
So it has to start out with a passion.
And so then how do we encourage our teens to recognize what their passion is?
Well, I guess one of the key ways that I do it, even with my own children, is we have this family activity once a year where we build a vision board. Everybody has their own vision board.
Wow.
And every year we update it. So to give you an example of this, and this might sound a little bit strange, but when my eldest daughter, and I did this with all of my kids, when she was in kindy and when she was 5 years of age, I bought her a vision board, and she was into sport, right? Because my job as a parent is to identify my kids' strengths and get them to run their life according to their strengths. So I knew at 5 that my eldest daughter was going to be good at sport. I didn't know what sport she was going to be good at, but I knew she was going to be good at. She had the physicality for it. So when she was 5, I cut a picture of a swimmer, a long jumper, a basketball player, stuck them all on a vision board.
Yeah.
And then I said to her this, I said, listen, now that you've started school, I just want us to be clear. Because what comes after school in our family, I don't know about your family, but in our family, what comes after year 12 is, of course, university. That's the expectation, right? So I said, listen, honey, what university do you want to go to? Now, remember, she was 5 at the time. She said, Dad, what university did Mum go to? I said, well, Mum went to Sydney University. She said, that's great. I'll go there. So I cut out a picture of Sydney University and I stuck it on her vision board when she was 5. And then she has the height of saying, she says, Dad, can I only go to one university?
That's
so
interesting.
You post-grad, go somewhere else. She goes, well, Dad, what's the best university in the world? I said, oh, honey, that would be Harvard. She said, can I go there? I said, reluctantly, absolutely. So I cut out a picture of Harvard and I stuck it on a vision board when she was 5. Now, please don't misunderstand me, all the listeners. I could actually care less whether my daughter goes to Harvard or not. All I want her to know is if she wants to go there, she can.
Yes.
Because you know what blows my mind? I work with young people all the time. I can't believe how many young people I come across that have never heard from a parent or a teacher that they could go to university. And I did some work at a college at Albury-Wodonga, and there are some courses at uni that they don't even need an ATAR to get in.
Yes.
So
I teach at some of those. I teach some of those courses, Glenn. I'm so glad you brought that up.
That's right. So here's the thing. Let's not, just because they don't get an ATAR, let's not say, hey, well, you have to go, these are your only options. There are plenty of other options available to them.
Passion is about emotions, what makes us feel good. In other words, it's doing what you love. Healthy passions can also, I think, give you clues to what your purpose is. Again, purpose is that reason, the why behind what we do. and it often focuses on others more than, oh, it's just a bit of fun. At this point, you might be feeling like purpose is a bit far off and difficult to find. But if we find something we're passionate about and it's aligned to our strengths, the question you might ask is, how can I use this to make the world better? So for your teen, that might look like having a passion for netball and having a skill for it. And then they might use these to make the world better by teaching, leading, or encouraging others. It reminds me of, I had a student a few weeks ago who was really, struggling with their self-worth, struggling with, they were always very apologetic about things. And yet the students' marks in my class were fantastic. And I sat down with the student and I said, you seem really unsure of yourself. I want you to start believing in your potential, and started speaking to this person about their dreams. This person had been in what other people don't know, perhaps in other countries, so I won't give the title of it, but it's kind of the lowest of the low, scraping through year 12.
Yeah.
And this person said to me, no one's ever asked me really, what do I believe in? What are my dreams or my goals? And I never thought I could get there. And I wasn't anything special, Glenn. I was simply asking them, what are your dreams and passions? And I thought, this young person's got to uni and no one's ever asked them. This is not what you were doing with your daughter. I don't want anyone to hear Glenn having gone, I was pressuring my daughter at 5. You're basically saying to your children, let me support you from really young and let's see what could your life look like, and let's start dreaming.
Absolutely. And they can start changing their mind. And that's the thing. I don't mind if they change their mind constantly. Yeah. Because how many of us changed our mind about our careers?
Yes,
numerous times. Yeah. So as long as they're headed somewhere. Yeah. Because like I said earlier, if they have hope in their future, they'll have power in their present. Yeah.
But now I have to then ask you, what if a parent thinks the child's passion or their teen's passion is not worthwhile? What would you say to a parent who thinks that?
Okay. This is actually a common question I actually get from teenagers, such as, I want to pursue music, but my dad wants me to do medicine. And what I say to that is I say, listen, to the teenager, and I say this to the parents as well, says, if that child really, really believed that they could be an actor, then their parents would actually start to believe in it as well. And how do you prove to your parents that you believe in your dream? Well, you practice, you train, you study, you rehearse. You enroll in drama school. When your parents say they're going to pay for it, you get a part-time job so you can pay for it. You go on audition after audition after audition. After a while, your parents will start to notice. They say, have you seen him? Yeah. He's been getting up at 5 a.m. every single morning for the last 6 months going over that monologue. You said we're going to pay for that drama school? He got a part-time job so he could pay for it. And once they start to see, because here's the deal, parents actually, the vast majority of parents want their young person, want their child to actually be successful. And if they can see their child working hard towards something, then the encouragement will come.
Another question, Glenn, I'm wondering if there's some parents thinking or listeners thinking, what if my child's dream is outside of their capacity or their natural ability? What do I do with that?
Yeah, I think that really depends on age. For instance, if my 4-year-old came to me and said, hey, I want to be president of the United States, I wouldn't blow up that dream and say, well, first of all, you're not an American citizen. First of all, because he has a vision right now. Yeah. And I think that's powerful. And so I wouldn't be trying to blow that up in his face at 4. Yes. Now, if they came to me at 16, I would say, well, listen, probably being the president of the United States probably isn't going to work, but maybe a career in politics here in Australia that might be of interest to you. And the first step to that is, why don't we try and get involved in a political party and see if that becomes a strong interest for you, because it might fade. Second of all, if it's a young guy who's like, and I mentioned this before, not getting young people to chase their dreams, but to chase their strengths. So if they're 4'4" and want to play NBA basketball, that's chasing their dream.
Yeah.
But what's your strength? You've got this primal genius. You've got this natural inclination. Pursue that.
I also have to say, I especially love this illustration that you did with the students around there is more in you than you think you've got. Now, I'm not going to give away your illustration because I think schools need to have you in and you do it with their students. But my son showed me this illustration, and talk to me about why you say that.
Yeah, well, there's an old Navy SEAL rule, and it says when your mind says you're done, you're only 40% done.
Wow.
And most people only really get to 40% of their potential, and then they give in to either fatigue, they give in to boredom, they give in to distraction or whatever. So my goal is to help young people see that there's more in them. And to use this illustration, I say to young people, if I could get a crystal ball and if I could show you a picture of what you'd be capable of if you gave something, anything, everything you've got. First of all, if I showed you that picture, none of you would believe it, because what you're capable of is so far beyond anything you could actually currently imagine. Second of all, if I showed you that, I promise you that every single one of you would cease trying to be somebody else and you'd put all your attention into being you. Because honestly, you are more than enough. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to be anybody else. You're actually more than enough.
Beautiful. I said at a parenting seminar the other day, your voice becomes your child's inner voice. And some of us adults have what you call limiting beliefs. And like you say, parents are doing the best job that they can. And I always say to parents, so much of what we do as parents or in our parenting also involves reflection, because some of our own pain can leak out without us even realizing. When we've had these words said to us, we kind of say them back at our kids, or we feel like if we belittle them or shame them or push them extra hard, and I'm not talking about what we've just spoken about now, encouraging your children to work to the best that they can, but really that pushing children to the point of exhaustion. How do we look at these limiting beliefs in ourselves first and then encourage our young people to overcome their own limiting beliefs?
I think we've got to start with our daily habits and as parents think, what are we actually consuming in terms of content? And we need to be role models to our kids and show them that we are always learning and changing and evolving and growing. I think Muhammad Ali said, a man who views the world the same way he did at 50 as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life.
Gosh.
And so the only way to enlarge our thinking is obviously through education and making it like a daily habit. So for me, one of my best practices or daily habits is I make sure I read something every day. I make sure I listen to a podcast every day. So I'm always, and I don't just listen to things that I believe to be true.
All right.
I make it a habit to listen to things that I might not agree with.
Brilliant.
And by doing that, it will either change my mind on an idea or reinforce my own beliefs.
Yeah.
And I think that's powerful to help us continue to keep growing and evolve. So we're not stuck in the mindset that we had as a child and what got told to us, and carry those limiting ideas into an era that is full of change and disruption.
I think it's so important for me to emphasize here that purpose is going to look very different for your teens compared to you as an adult. Purpose or finding purpose doesn't need to consume your teen's life. It's okay, and I would say even necessary, for our teens to be doing things that are just a bit of fun and things they like doing, like maybe going to a movie with their friends or swimming in the sea or playing video games for that matter. Sometimes it may only be a few hours in their week, but they need times to just be in the world and have some downtime to be able to then function in the world in healthier ways. So how would you then encourage a listener today to help their teen to dream?
Gosh, I think we mentioned it already. I think that vision board activity is pretty powerful, but also exposing them to different things. Because, whilst our children have certain characteristics that are like ours, they're unique individuals.
Yeah.
So, for instance, a lot of young people say to me, "Oh, listen, Glenn, I love your seminar. It was awesome, but at the end of it, I still don't know what my purpose is." And I say, that's no problem, because all I came here to do was enlighten you to the fact that your life has purpose. And I guarantee when you leave here, you'll write to me within the next 2 weeks. It might take 6 months, and tell me what it is. How does that work? Because I had someone write to me and they said, "Listen, Glenn, I went to a stage production. I don't usually go to stage productions, but you told me to try some different things." So my friend had a spare ticket and I went. And he said, "Glenn, you know what? It wasn't the actors on the stage. It was that guy up in that lighting box. When I saw what he could do with the lights and sounds, something on the inside of me came alive."
Wow.
And young people will know it when they see it.
Yes.
So as parents, how do we get them to dream? We expose them to different things. We go to sporting games, we go to theatre productions, we get them involved. We have dinner parties with other interesting people, get them to ask questions, and we expose them to things outside of our natural realm. And then they go, "Wow, I saw that." And that's because I don't know about you, but because I'm a speaker, whenever I hear other great speakers, other great communicators, I can't sit still in my chair. I'm literally shaking in my seat because I know what is resonating on the inside of them on stage is the same thing that resonates with me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I well up with tears when I hear amazing communicators, because I know what I'm looking at is the same thing that lives in me.
Yeah. Wow. And so finally, your work is all about hope. And my last question for every guest on the podcast is about hope. What is your hope for this generation of teens?
Well, honestly, if I was to put it simply, I think my hope is that every young person that I speak to, or that this generation would learn to become fully engaged in life by finding their purpose, finding that thing that lights them up. Because apathy is soul destroying. And when they're engaged in life, they're full of joy, they're growing as people, and they're not distracted by their smartphone.
I'm sure you've worked out by now that we are big fans of Glen in our house. I especially love Glen's reminder that even though our teens may not yet know their purpose, it's important for us to keep reminding them that they have a purpose. They are unique individuals and have something to offer the world that nobody else does. So please go and tell your teen today, you being in the world makes the world a better place. If you want to find out more about Glen and his work, you can find him at glengerreyn.com. That's Glen, GERREYN.com. You can also find me at raisingteens.au. And if you have a question about raising your teen, please contact me via email or my Facebook page at Collett Smart. If you found this episode helpful or gained some useful insight from it, please subscribe and review wherever you get your podcasts and consider sharing it with friends and family. I hope to see you next episode, but in the meantime, keep parenting with your teen's future adults in mind.
This episode was hosted by Collett Smart, edited and produced by Alec Green, imaging by Lucy Weil, and social media by Beth Rivers.